It seems that the SNP just actively try to go out their way to annoy the absolute piss out of everyone, yet still get votes. No matter what they do, no matter what atrocious, horrible, stupid things they do, they still somehow get votes. Fury as Scottish pupils allowed to change gender aged 4 without parental consent. School children in Scotland as young as 4 will be allowed to change gender without parental consent under new Scottish Government guidelines. I am so certain this isn't going to cause any long standing behavioural or psychological problems, confusing people at such a young age with such nonsense. The guidance states pupils from primary school age and upwards can change their gender because recognition and development of gender identity can occur at a young age. They also like to think they're aeroplanes and superheroes, but okay. They will also be allowed to choose which changing rooms and toilets they use based on their gender identity. Is everyone starting to see the problem? If a child wants to change gender, school staff should ask what name and pronoun you should use to address them, so that means they can change the whole name. Whole name as well, because obviously a 4-year-old is capable of making such a decision like that. A 4-year-old, obviously, they've been around long enough to understand the social ramifications of such a thing, or the long-standing problems it could cause. I mean, they've been here for a whole 4 years. They obviously completely understand their own mind, because it's well, no, it's not even close to fully developed, but they know. They absolutely know. A 4-year-old can obviously make a decision like that. They should also ask the child whether their family know, but there is no suggestion they should be contacted. The guidelines state some young people are exploring their gender identity in primary school settings. Primary schools need to be able to meet the needs of these young people to ensure they have a safe, inclusive, and respectful environment in which to learn. Now, I'm just going to make a wee assumption here because I've been at school myself, and no such thing was ever mentioned or ever brought up and when I was at school. No such thing. I went to school with an awful lot of people. There was a lot of people in my class, a lot of people in my schools, because schools are gloriously underfunded. A lot of students, not so many teachers, and out of everyone I went to school and high school with, there hasn't been a single trans person. Not one. Gay people, sure. There've been gay people. Trans people, no, not at all. It's almost like we never had any conception or anything like that of it at all. I mean, it's not something that anybody even ever thought about. Because actually being trans is actually extremely rare. It's actually really, when you consider the wide scope of society and populations at large, being trans is really rare. It's almost like this stuff is being brought up to kids. It's almost like thoughts are being put into their head that they really didn't have a reason to think about. Sounds like some of them might be getting confused by this information because they are too young to have it discussed with them. It adds that people are not required by Scottish law to use toilets that match their birth gender. The policy, that's great. I mean, if you want your little girl to be in a room with a bunch of men waving their pricks around, hey, there you go. The SNP's delivered that for you. Yeah, I absolutely want my young child surrounded by dicks. Like, yeah, sure, why not? SNP, independence, yeah, hell yeah. The policy was the policy was defended by Shirley Ann Somerville, the SNP's Education Secretary, hopefully a position she will be stepping down from very soon. She said this guidance outlines how schools can support transgender young people while ensuring that the rights of all pupils are fully respected. It provides schools with practical suggestions. The guidance is not prescriptive and does not promote transitioning. Does it not? Does it not? However, the move sparked an angry backlash online. Imagine. Couldn't believe it myself. And from some women's groups. Marion Calder, director of For Women Scotland, argued that guidelines are a failure in safeguarding and a removal of parental rights. Yes, the SNP, by the way, They have a long history of this. The SNP do not want you raising your own kids. The SNP want to raise your kids, like, for you, where you have no say. The government gets to have a say. They tried this with their named person scheme, which was actually so bad that it gets slapped down in human rights court. Like, that is proper, like, say, 1984, like people like to say, but, like, that named person scheme was literally that shit. They wanted to be able to mould your children to the way that they want, and they raise the next generation of SNP voters, glory to the party, and all that stuff. And you could not do or say anything about it. Like, the government would monitor your child, and if your child grew up believing things that the government didn't like, then you would be able, basically, the school would be able to remedy that, and you wouldn't get to have a say. You would actually get in trouble for teaching your children things that the government does not want you teaching them. Now, obviously, there are some things that you definitely shouldn't be teaching your children. You shouldn't teach a 5-year-old how to roll a joint, for example. Wait until they're at least 16. But this was things like basically any form of right-wing politics, like anything. What are they thinking? Parents will be very concerned to be reading this document, as they should, absolutely. The remarks sparked a furious backlash on social media, with critics arguing that 4-year-olds aren't mature enough to decide to change their gender. Absolutely correct, because it's absolutely true. 4-year-olds do not have the mental capacity to understand such an action. They don't, and there's a reason why this is being pushed, and I'm going to get into it at the end. One wrote, 4-year-olds believe Santa is real. They can't read, write, or do basic arithmetic, or tell the time. They do not have the cognitive ability or emotional intelligence to be making such a decision. I'm stunned by the adults who think they do. Now, this is a trend. This is a trend, right? Keep that in your mind. Keep that in your mind. Another added, Sturgeon has lost it altogether, or she lost it a long time ago. A third asked, apart from the idea being lunacy, what is it with the SNP? They want to raise your children the way they want. They don't want to teach your children how to think. They want to teach your children what to think. And the only thing they want your children thinking is glory to the party, glory to the SNP. They are constantly trying to cut parents out of their children's upbringing. Yes, the SNP have a track record of doing that. They need a generation of voters because, a lot of people at home don't buy into the SNP's crap, and their ideology is that terrible that they can't convince people of it, so they need to raise people into it. Mental conditioning, it's what North Korea does. The SNP won re-election at May's Hollywood elections, but fell short of an absolute majority. I have no idea why everybody keeps voting for them. Like, is an independent Scotland, but ruled by an iron fist, really worth it? Is that the price you're willing to pay? Miss Sturgeon is currently negotiating with the Scottish Green Party, who could provide ministers for her government. She is continuing to demand a second referendum on Scottish independence, though Boris Johnson is urging her to focus on coronavirus and the economy. I am pro-independence, however, yes, we should be currently focused on coronavirus and the economy. And that's the end of the article. Now, the trend here, the thing that we are noticing right now, we can all agree there are a lot of things that children are not old enough to decide for themselves, right? And there are certain things that you should not discuss with your children. Like, see, for example, see when your child, do not, for example, sexual subjects, sexual topics, right? See when they hit puberty and that little magic part of the brain switches on and they start thinking about that stuff, because human nature, it's the body, it's what it does. Remember puberty? Puberty was great, wasn't it? Why am I angry all the time? Oh, I have to give a talk in front of the class, and then my body goes, do you know what you need right now? A giant boner. Thanks, yeah. Puberty's shite. Puberty's a horrible fucking time, right? But see, around about that time, that's when it's okay. It's time to have the talk, right? Things that you should definitely teach, like young children, especially 4 or 5, do not get into a stranger's car. Do not talk to anyone that you don't know. If you ever get lost, like, here's how you can contact us. If you ever get lost, go into a shop and tell a member of staff, or go to a police officer. Like, no, right, reasonable, good things that you can teach to children, right? Sensible things like that. However, it seems that a lot more responsibility is being heaped onto children, and people seem to make the argument that children are able to make big decisions for themselves, such as gender. A child can change their whole name. A 4-year-old can change their name and they can even decide their gender, and they can even decide if they want to, if your little girl wants to go, I'm a man now, and go into the men's toilets, then she is allowed to do that. And she apparently can make that decision when she is just 4 years old. It seems there is a big push for children, to apparently be able to make big decisions for themselves. They are allowed to decide if they want to consent to certain things, because apparently they are able to do so because the argument's being made that they're smart enough, they know all about it. Does everyone see where this is going?